was really stunned watching Bart being interviewed by Danny Jones. He told Danny that creo means the anointed one, or to be anointed. That's what it means. Creo, anoint, anoint. That's all he knows. You can listen to him say it kind of over and over again. Well, the word creo actually does not mean that at all. Creo is simply a surface application. To touch the surface, to rub the surface, to rub over with color, to smear the body, to wound the surface. Even more, look at this. We can infect. To infect is to creo. To poison one's arrows is to creo. Does that sound like the word anoint adequately captures the depth of the root verb creo? Which here, by the way, I don't say it right because I don't get the chi right, but the sting of the gadfly is number 3. Creo, a wounding of the surface, a rubbing of the, coloring of the surface, smearing of the surface. Anyway, you get the idea. Somehow, this guy doesn't know that. How does and they run around calling themselves scholars. It's kind of embarrassing. Scholars are supposed to have depth of knowledge. They should at least know what the word Christ means if they're a Bible scholar. He even says in this interview, oh, it's not a very common word. Yeah, it's not that common. He used a Greek word. It's not that common. Really. It's not that common in the New Testament. Bart, how many times, by the way? So listener, how many times do you think that the word Kristos and its derivations, which have the exact same meaning, Kriston, Kristos, Christe, same thing. How many times do you think it shows up in the New Testament? Bart says, oh, it's not that common. And he's been a devout evangelical since his early teens, right? I guess he quit being a believer, but the dude's been in this thing for his entire life. It's not that common. 538 occurrences. 538. There you go. So here you can see Kriston, Kristos, exact same meaning. All these exact, just difference. The Greeks have, the way they end it's beyond me at this point. I don't really care anyway. But anyway, the point here, all the same meaning. Kriston is the same as Kristos. So I first came upon this probably around June of 2024. This was right around the time that Hillman was getting traction with Gnostic Informant. And then Hillman went on Danny Jones, and then McClellan responded. Hillman responded to him. And then I still hadn't figured out at that point how to access Perseus Word Study Tool back here. Probably like July or August. I figured out what the LSJ was. But in this interview, and this is what Hillman gave to Danny Jones to ask Dan, because who else would do this? This is Phaedra in Euripides, Hippolytus, from 428 BC. Notice, Phaedra, Kriston. So I'm going to show you that in a second, so you can see that that's what we'll be working on in a few moments. But for me, this was the first time I was exposed to this drug language. I'm like, are you serious? There's no way. So, it was an apocalypse for me, right? An unveiling. Got to deal with the unveiling. I had to enter the creo and the Kriston cave. And I went in there, and it was not easy. You can see I let my hair grow to demonstrate. It wasn't easy, the shit I came upon. I had no idea. So I had no idea that this existed until I entered the cave, or that this existed. I'll explain this a little bit later, but that's what I learned when I entered the cave, which all these Bible sissy guys are afraid to enter. They're afraid to enter the cave. Poor babies. So this is Bart telling Danny that you just look up words in the lexicon. They'll tell you exactly what they mean. Like over here, this is from the lexicon that he's talking about. So just use the lexicon. And so he and Danny go online and they get this lexicon. You can see right here, what you're looking at right here, is what we are looking at. And you can see, he said get the Liddell Scott, call it Liddell Scott, I forget what the J is. So it's the Greek English lexicon. So here you can see they come to it. Sorry. They look up the word Kristos. And now they're looking at, the interesting thing for me when I was watching this is that it was clear that this guy never even looked at this before. I mean, he didn't know what he was looking at. Let me just blow it up, by the way, so you can see. Now, I wanted to show you too here that this is Aeschylus. This is Euripides. 470 BC, 430 BC. They're using the word Kristos. They use Kriston, same thing. 470 BC. The reason why, sorry about that. The reason why I'm showing you this now is because I'll show you in a little while. I'll show you right now, actually. This guy said he would be surprised if the word Kristos, Kriston, appeared before the Septuagint was written. Now, we know the Septuagint was written when? Well, first, let me show you this. Kriston, Kristos, you can see here, this is New Testament, and this is Kristos, 470 BC. So he said, I would be surprised. This is what Bart said in the interview. I'd be surprised if the word Kristos existed anywhere before the Septuagint was written. So this is 200 years earlier in Aeschylus that the word Kristos is used. So this Bible scholar has no notion about the nature of the actual word Kristos. I mean, what a true embarrassment this guy is. So this is actually going to that. So what you can do, right? So here's what you can do. You can, once you're in Perseus, the Greek word study tool, you can get to Kristos, and you can then click on Aeschylus. This is Prometheus. You can click on Euripides. We'll do both. So you click on Aeschylus. Here it is. Down below you see Kriston. Now this is what he says. This is what Bart said. Yeah, I'd be surprised if anybody used the actual word Kristos before the Septuagint. Well, here's Kriston, Kristos, same meaning. Here they are. What year? 470 BC. What year is the Septuagint? 270 BC. So 200 years earlier, Kriston, Kristos was being used because it has nothing to do with the word anoint or the anointed one. Absolutely nothing. And we know this is true. We just simply need to go to John 4:25. 2,000 years ago, right? So Bart Ehrman is 2,000 years behind the Samaritan woman in the fairy tale who knew that Christ was different than Messiah. Right? She says, I know the Messiah, right? The deliverer is coming, who is called Kristos. What does Kristos mean, Bart? Kristos is a salve. Pharmakon Christos. That is drug salve. Drug salve. Christ is a drug term, period. Christ is a drug term. That's just how it is. The only place you find the word Christ, Kristos, in the LSJ, right, the lexicon that is recommended by Bart, the only place you find Kristos, Kriston, is in the Pharmakon. Nowhere else. And I will show you that as we move through. So again, here we are starting. Now I'm going to show you the Phaedra where Bart can't read these 6 words. Really, there's just 4 key words, right? Pharmakon, poton, Kriston, and potera. This means like which one, right? So which drug are we going to give the dude? A Christ or a drinkable? That's what it says. It's really simple. And Bart can't figure this out for some reason. So, as I showed you, I got the sting of the gadfly on this, and that's why I started studying. I was curious. It was amazing to find this out. So here we are with Bart and Danny. Now you can see right here, this right here is from Euripides, Phaedra. So that's where it is right there. You saw it before, right? Phaedra, and there is the same words. So what is going on here? What is taking place in this section here? So this nurse, you can see, and here's Phaedra. So Phaedra wants to have sex with the young dude. And so she wants, I think he's underage. So she's trying to get a love potion. You can see a love medicine. So you go right down here, you can see filtra. The second you see filtra, this is part of, and I'll show you, this is part of the Pharmakon. So the nurse says, I've got a love charm. Now this word here, they give a nod to Aphrodite, aphrodisiac, right? So they want a love potion, aphrodisiac kind of deal. So the nurse says, I need a piece of hair or some clothing. This is hair. So I can make the potion, so I can make the drug for you. So Phaedra says, well, what kind of drug is it? Right here, drug, which, what kind of drug is it? Is it a Kriston or is it a poton? So this is 430 BC. Is the drug a Christ or a drinkable potion to drink? That's what it says. Now look how Bart interprets this. Watch this. Oh, okay, that's the case of Phaedra. Yeah, Phaedra. Yeah, where it says whether it is the ointment or the drug drink. Drug drink. Yeah, whether ointment or drug drink. In other words, the poisonous drink or the anointment. The poisonous drink. What's he talking? There's no word poison. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he thought for a second that Pharmakon might be poison. Yeah, because he's not very bright when it comes to all this stuff. So, in response to that, Danny says, so it is used, Christ is used as a drug word here. So, you should say so can we give it credit for being a drug here? And Bart says, no, it says, I have to read the context, but it looks like this is Bart, this is the scholar. It looks like it's contrasting the thing that is to be anointed on or the thing being drunk. What WTF is this friggin' guy talking about? All this is, nurse says, I got a charm at my house, or I can make a love charm for you. It's a drug. It's a filtrate. Okay, what kind of drug is it? Am I going to Christ him or is he going to drink it? That's all it says. That's all it says. Bart does not know. He doesn't know this. I don't even know what to say. Like what do you say about a guy like this who claims it's? Sorry, I'm having a moment here. This is shocking. Okay, so we go a little further. So he first says, no, it's not a drug there. But he doesn't explain why. So they talk a little bit more. And then, again, Danny says, okay, doesn't this say he uses the word Christ? So this is, doesn't Euripides use the word Christ? And Bart says, no, it's using the word creo. This is creo. This is Kristos or Kriston, right? Kristos, Kriston. Do you see a creo there? No. He does not know the difference between the root verb creo and the noun Kristos. I don't even know, what you say about a guy like this. It's mind-boggling. So when you look down a little bit below here, you'll say, there's only one dude who's telling me that it's drugs, and that's Amund Hillman. But then his argument is, he says that the only other person that corroborates him is Julius Africanus, who's been dead. Well, you don't need any other person to confirm what Hillman says because it's very clear. And it's very clear that this dude, Bart Ehrman, doesn't have a clue as to what creo or Kristos is. This is the verb, again. Creo. And I showed you all the stuff that it meant. I'll show you again. The noun is there. And he says no. He says it's not there. The verb is there. Right before his eyes, he can't figure it out. Right before his eyes. What an embarrassment. So back to where we started, because now we're going to look at the verb. We're going to click on creo. Now when we click on creo, we get a short description and a long description. So we're in the lexicon, by the way, that Bart says that we must use. Now remember, he already has no clue that the word Christ, which is a drug, was used 470 BC by Aeschylus and then 430 BC by Euripides, 200 years before the Septuagint emerged, which means that Kristos has nothing to do with Moshiach. That word didn't appear until the Septuagint, until like 300 BC, because they all know that the Old Testament wasn't written until 300 BC. It's made it very, very clear. Gad Barnea makes it very, very clear. Run, Kip, Run from Myth Vision makes it very, very clear. There's basically just chicken scratch here and there, some scratch on some rocks in a tunnel. There's nothing there. So we know that Kristos has nothing to do with persons being anointed until the Old Testament and the New Testament. That's when that language started to be used. But the word anoint wasn't used until 1200. So you see, ointment didn't exist until 1200. So we have to realize that these words that Christians use today, anoint, it didn't exist until 1200 AD. So he was not called the anointed one. He was called Kristos, which was he's an expert in the Kristos Pharmakon, is what he is. He's an expert in. It's very obvious. I'll show you in a couple seconds. So here we are. We're going to click on creo, and you have the short version and the long version. Now, I'll tell you now, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I numbered these 4 show up in the New Testament. So we're going to first take a look at creo. I'm going to get rid of the anoint stuff because Bart will just look at anoint. So look, anoint, anoint, anoint. But anoint, the word didn't exist. When creo came about, it meant simply a surface application. Touching, rubbing, infecting the surface, poisoning one's arrows, rubbing with color, smearing the body with whatever, and wounding the surface by a prick or a sting. That's what creo means. It has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with Yahweh. It has nothing to do with anything religious until it was spiritualized in 1500 in the Coverdale Bible. 1500 AD. I'll show you that reference in a little while. And how does this clown not know that? So this is the big creo, which this guy's never, ever looked at. What an embarrassment, right? This is creo. How can you, it just means anoint. Really? How about wash with color or coat? How about that? So down here you can see sting of the gadfly. So this is all creo. Now, creo is there, but here in the creo section, there is no mention of Christon or Kristos, right? So this is not here. So Christon, Kristos, the only place where you can get access to the word Christ, Kristos, in the lexicon that is recommended by Bart Ehrman is if you go to the Pharmakon. So we're going to click now on Pharmaku to get to the Pharmakon. The only way to find Christ in the LSJ lexicon recommended by Blind Bart is to go to the Pharmakon. Here's the word, Christon. Look at this. Euripides. This is 430 BC. This is Theocritus, 280 BC. Enkriston, which is the exact same language used by Enkrisai by Jesus in Revelation 3:18. Epikriston is the same as epikrisen in John 9 when Jesus spits on the ground, adds some mud to it, and plops on the dude's eye, and he can see again. Well, Jesus spit. Jesus is the Christ. He's the healer, right? He spits and the spit heals. Mark 8, he spits in a guy's eyes and his vision comes back. He's the Kristos, right? So he drugged. The dude is literally a walking drug machine in that context. So Christon you can only find in the Pharmakon, Bart, drugs. The only place you see Kristos, Christon, anywhere in the ancient Greek lexicon is in the context of it being a drug. That's it. And the outcome of taking drugs, you want to have soterias, pharmakon, soterias. This is salvation, deliverance, salvation from the malady that you had. So you are given a Kriston, you're enkristos, enkriside or epikrisend, and you had salvation. Your vision came back. That's what that word salvation came from. This, by the way, too, is Euripides. So this goes back 400 BC, long before the Old Testament was written. So you can see how unbelievably clueless this poor guy really is. It's an embarrassment, ultimately. So here you can see, back from Euripides, right? Euripides, 430 BC. Kriston, 430 BC. Kriston. Enkriston, exactly as Revelation 3:18. Now remember, Kriston shows up in the Bible 67 times. Kristos, total of 530 times. This word only means, is synonymous with Kriston. These words refer to a drug. It's the only place it shows up. The only place Kriston, Kristos shows up is in the Pharmakon, which is why Hillman says drugs are everywhere. Because whenever you see the word Christ being used, we're either talking about the drug itself or Jesus, who is the Pharmakos Christos. He is the master Christer. And I'll show you what I mean. He sold Christings in Revelations. He gave Christings in June 9. He taught Christings to his disciples. It's very obvious, very, very obvious. So we're going to take the creo and the Pharmakon, because now I've got my 6 places that I have, there may be more, but these are the 6 places that I have found in the New Testament where the ancient Bronze Age Greek language as well as the Pharmakon line up exactly as it does in the New Testament. Here's Jesus, the Pharmakos Christos, spitting on the ground and then mixing it with some mud. He puts a poultice on it. So you see, it's not spreading an oil. See the word epikrisen? Now they think it says anoint, but anoint, you'll say, well, you anoint with oil. Well, this is anointing with clay, right? See, anoint means to apply an ointment. So to say I was anointed with oil means that you're kind of stupid, frankly. I mean, I would say it too until I thought about it. Oil, it means you get oiled. Ointment is to be ointmented. That's what anoint means. It means to apply an ointment, which wise anointing oils is stupid language. So this does not mean anoint. It means Christ, Christing. What's being Christed? The Christ from the Pharmakos Christos that healed the guy's eyes. Poor Bart has no idea about any of this. What a shame for poor old Bart. So here he is telling us again, 1300 BC is the stuff I just showed you basically. The word anoint didn't appear until 1300 AD. Well, Kriston was around 2600 years earlier. So he says Christ comes from the word anointed. He thinks Moshiach means anointed, and that's where Christ came from. No, Christ was Kristos was around long before that. Now, let me show you also here how really shallow he is when it comes to his understanding of the Bible. Jeez, what an embarrassment. So down below he says, in the ancient world, in gymnasiums, they would, as part of a massage, they would rub oil on your skin, and that makes you the anointed one. That makes you the Christ. Just rubbing olive oil on the skin makes you the anointed one or the Christ. So you can see how insane this is. This is madness. This is absolute madness. Let me show you what I mean. This is alepho. So you can see here, again, this is old, but I mean, this is bad language, right? Anoint with oil. You can't really ointment with oil. Anyway, but the language is there. So what context do we find this in the lexicon that Bart recommends? Well, here you can see gymnasium. Here you see the gymnasium. Where is the gymnasium? Here you go, gymnasiums. Right. So he's talking about olive oiling yourself after gymnasium. This has nothing to do with Christing at all. Not even close. So this is what Bart is talking about, gymnastic exercises, right? So this is called, well, oiling, elephening, or in the other words, there's 9 occurrences of these words, elephen and elepsosin. All apply to or refer to applying oil to the skin. And then another word, this is the most accurate. If you want to use a word for anoint, you need to use this word because muodon means ointment. So, but before it meant ointment, it meant unguent. So look at this, 1500 BC, muodon. To apply the muodon, it's called morizo, or you can see morisai. That is applying the muodon, the ointment. So if we were to call someone that we call the muodon one, right? From 700 BC until 1300 AD, the only thing you could call Jesus would have been the muodon one or the unguented one, because the word ointment didn't exist, which is why you should get rid of the word anointing and anoint out of your mind, because from a Bible perspective, it's irrelevant. The word did not exist until 1300 AD, and they even spiritualized it, as I'll show you in a second. So you can see here, there are Christings, Chrise, Chrisai, Chrisen, Chrisas, Ekrisas, Chrisma, and then Epikrisen. These are Christings. What are Christs? The application of drug salves. Medicated salves are what a Christ is. When Jesus spit on the ground, Jesus' spittle was the drug, the Christ, that was then put on this dude as a clay. He was Christed. He was epikrisend. So Christings are different than morizoing versus, because this could literally be ointment only, right? And this would be oiling. So oiling, ointmenting, creaming, and this is medicated salves. So you have 4 different words. 2 apply to oiling. Morizo, well, all these apply to an ointment or a cream, and this would be a medicated salve, and that's the difference. Now, why doesn't Bart know that? He doesn't know that because he was indoctrinated as a teenager. He even told us this. Now watch this. Originally, this comes from Etymology Online. Originally, in reference to grease or oil smeared on for medicinal purposes. Chrism, here's the Christo. This word here applies to basically Kristos, or what was the word? I forget this is just a bad translation to the Greek word. But look what we're told here. Medicinal purposes until 1400, 1500. After that, Christing went from being a drug term to being a spiritualized word. So the Coverdell Bible in 1535 completely invented the manufactured notion that one can be anointed by God, and thus the Anointed One fairy tale began. So the momentum of this fairy tale that's captured Bart, obviously, and all of his buddies, has been going on for 500 years. They don't even remotely question it. And I think the reason why is because of what Thomas Jefferson said. He made it very clear. The Bible should be kept out of the hands of children. Now, when I listen to all these Bible scholars do their Bible talking, or even the theologians, they're just adults using the same language that I heard when I was 12 years old. So it's like they're using 12-year-old language. And Thomas Jefferson made it very clear: keep the Bible out of the hands of children. Only made available after their own ability to reason independently had been established through the study of history and philosophy. That took back then to about 20 years. This is Peter Carr, who was Thomas Jefferson's nephew, said, now your reason is mature enough to examine the subject of religion. Bart and all the myth vision dudes, none of them, they were all zogrond. They were taken captive by the English translation fairy tale and the spoken word long before their reasoning skills were established. It's very, very obvious. That's why a guy like Bart can't even, the dude can't navigate a freaking lexicon, for God's sakes. So these guys basically, this is Bart, the historian, talking to this dude, Bass, the theologian. Now the thing is, they both believe the exact same story. The beautiful story of Jesus that we all know. That's what Bart believes the story is. He has no clue about what I just went over. So he doesn't know what I just went over. He believes what this guy believes. The only difference is that this dude here, he believes the fairy tale is true. Bart just doesn't believe the fairy tale is true, but they both accept the anointed by God story, which is what Bart tells us when he's talking about the creo stuff. So my suggestion for Bart and all his buddies, you guys need to enter the cave quick. This is Bart, what, 70 years old, Bart? And you're clueless, Bart. You must enter the cave of creo and free yourself from your mind, as Thomas Jefferson warned all of us that we must be careful of having happening to us if we take on religion before our reasoning skills are properly and adequately established.